Good afternoon, good evening, and hello, and welcome back to the Ambassador Wing and another installment of the Council of One's Babylon 5 review. Sorry for the delay, folks. It has been a very long, very hectic day at work, but we are here. We are happy to be here, and we are happy to see so many familiar faces and hopefully some new faces as well. And as always, if this is your first visit to the Ambassador Way, to the good old AW, hope you enjoy your visit and smash that like button. Share this stream out with your friends, whether you're watching on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Twitter, and tell them that this is where the Babylon 5 party is. And with me, as always, is my fellow council members. You know them, you love them. They're wacky, they're crazy, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Fiona Wolf, Lord Goj, and Mountains of Elysium. My fellow council members, my friends, it is good to see you all. Glad to have you back as always. And today we are covering a very interesting episode of season 5 of B5, Movements of Fire and Shadow. So, with all of that being said, we don't stand on a lot of ceremony here. Let's get into the discussion. Movements of Fire and Shadow. My friends.
This is the first mention of the Crusade model, the Excalibur and everything else, because Sheridan talks about it with Delenn. Like, we need a destroyer class White Star.
Yes.
Hey, that's right. This is the seeds for Crusade.
Yes.
That's so
and
cool.
How I wish it had lasted longer than it did, because we would have had Bester back and so many storylines coming, and that really good X-Files one.
Also with the fact that, with Crusade being a traveling ship, very Star Trek-y like, we could explore and expand the universe. Because, Babylon 5, we always got an idea of all the alien races and cultures and all this if they were passing through, So it'd be kind of cool to just see more of the universe and all this stuff that, I don't know, didn't make its way to
all
Babylon
those
5
supposedly
section,
dead civilizations that were
Right?
dead. Oopsie.
Like, even if we were able to go to the planet where was it? Oh, I'm forgetting the name of him. But the guy in season 1 where he's all protect, it would be really interesting there. They had so many opportunities and situations because we know Babylon 5 universe is different from Star Wars, Star Trek. It kind of is a little bit more Twilight Zoney. So
it probably would have had more of a Farscape vibe, because I've been watching that.
Yes.
I mean, they really went cosmically kooky on that show, at least from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, that one? Actually, that guy, he does appear, and it could have been because it was Talon. Marshall Teague was the guy who played that guy who was protect the Ankarans.
That's right. That was Talon. I do remember seeing him for a few seconds in Michael Bay's Armageddon as well.
That's another movie that's fun to watch. Blow that asteroid up. Yeah, buddy.
So, one thing on this episode, we have all the hostility towards the Centauri. Like that, like a civilian was killed. Dear God.
Yeah. It's kind of like what happened with the Markav. They had to isolate the Centauri so that they wouldn't, get KO'd by the general population of the station, because everybody and their brothers ticked off at them right now.
It's sort of a reverse of what happened at the beginning of the Centauri-Narn War, because the Centauri were attacking the Narns in the station. And I do remember, was it Jakar was told if he can't control his people, the Narn might be kicked off. So this time they didn't do that.
I think this time is worse because there were no murders during that time. This time I think there are murders. And also this time is probably worse because that when the Narn Centauri war kicked off, it was mostly the Narn and Centauri were having issues, but now it's everyone having issues with the Centauri. So the killers could be anyone. It could be even a human or something.
But the Drakh want that to happen on purpose so that the Centauri end up being isolated, and they'll have to rely on the Drakh for some backhanded help.
Exactly.
Like,
This is like part of the whole punishing the Centauri for what Londo did to the shadows.
but they haven't forgotten about the humans, and they tried their wiffle bat over there at the Minbari during the Minbari Civil War. But I imagine they probably would have tried to mess with everybody eventually.
I think they were doing it like a divide and conquer. I've heard like usually before these reviews, I'd listen to what you call it, Lore Runner, and he was mentioning how he thought the Drak, because of the keepers, were overpowered. And I wonder, because like the keepers are so pervasive, so they can control someone so easily. But I wonder, is it that there may be so few? The Drak mightn't be huge in number.
Well, that and what kind of Drak can incubate a keeper? Because you see, Scoffala, or however you say his name, because his name's never mentioned in the actual show. You might have to look at the credits to know what his name is, but he takes the keeper out of his chest, so you wonder how many keepers can be gestated by one Drak, and if they have to be a certain class of Drak.
Yeah, I was thinking a certain class, because he seems to be looking different from the others. So maybe a different species of Drak, because he clearly grows them out of him. Kind of like in the aliens in Alien, where they the queen lays the face huggers. Kind of
there
like
is.
No, I'm getting heebie-jeebies talking about this.
Yes. There is one thing to wonder.
There we go.
Sorry, are the Drak gestating the keepers, or are the keepers controlling the Drak? Are the Drak bad because of the keepers?
Or they could have been a biologically engineered race by the shadows to be a servant race.
Or they're like, those creatures in the sea that feed off of or clean the whales, and whales don't eat them, or like they have a codependency thing. Like it's like part of their genetics.
Oh, you're thinking of a remora that's attached to a shark.
Yeah, something like that.
Man, poor Malari, though, in this episode, he gets prepped for keeper status.
But we do get a cool mission with friggin' Veer sending Franklin and Lita to the Drazi homeworld.
That was excellent.
And then they get to figure out that, hey, the Drazi know that there weren't Centauri on those ships. What gives? They had vital information that could have cleared the Centauri's name a bit.
Right?
Who and also,
the Drazi were can't help but... right? That's where the D comes from in Drazi. But it's like I also wonder if some of this information would be unraveled should Garibaldi's mission to the Drazi homeworld would have been pretty successful, which also makes sense why there's such aggression on that side, because the Drazi are probably hiding even more secrets, which is why it was more dangerous than they perceived it to be when they first went. So the second time going there is really good, because then they can unravel this.
Yeah. And the Drazi are behind a lot of, I think, the lack of cohesion in the League or in the Interstellar Alliance. They're egging on the Narn. Now, the Narn have justification for attacking the Centauri. They do want revenge. The Centauri pretty much pounded their world. But the Drazi, they seem to be manipulating. They're, in my mind, as bad as a Drak, without having the excuse of being controlled by the shadows. And not that I don't like the Drazi, their culture throughout the run of Babylon 5 would be one of my favorites. They're just lunatic.
Yeah, they're pretty wild. They're very, very simple in their thinking too, and with such
yeah, I still need to reread the Centauri Prime trilogy because it's been a while, but yeah, it definitely does go a lot more into the Drak and their whole setup.
Now, because also the Drak, another thing is, remember when Sheridan was captured and he met Talon on that like X-Files alien I can't even abduction. There we go.
Abduction, yes.
Abduction ship. Thank you. the aliens in there look very similar to the aliens that we see that kind of take Londo after they like
Yeah.
what knock out with some kind of ray to Jakar and Londo in that cell, and then they bring him like to some lab or whatever, and then they just play with his mind, and that main Drak is there. So I'm wondering if those guys are Drak or are they just another alien species that work with the Drak. They put stuff in his mouth.
Okay.
Oh
Yes,
my god,
I think
that was
Colin
gonna
has
blast
it.
back fire in the sky.
Colin has them. I think the Stribes. I think they're different, but Stribes were named after Whitney Strieber, the guy who was it called? I can't think of the name of it. And Whitney Strieber in his books name one of the evil races after Straczynski.
Oh,
they call them the Strats in his world building, and Straczynski calls his bad guys Stribes.
Well, the interesting thing for me with this episode, as y'all mentioned, it's a lot of world building that will get payoff for in Crusade. But there are several interesting things, but there's one thing I kind of wanted to touch upon, and that's what Franklin said once they're all back on the station, and they're talking about the shadow technology, and he's like, "This is a lot like what happened in the late 20th century with the fall of the Soviet Union, which many of us here were alive to see and experience, so to speak. Not to mention the waning years of the Cold War between the U.S. and the old USSR. And we are still dealing with that whole situation on numerous levels. We've got weapons out there that nobody else knows how to build, but that people and nations with very bad reputations, no alliteration intended, don't know how to build themselves, but aren't afraid to use against just about anybody. Even people that have no legitimate beef with them at all. But they're like, hey, let's see what this does. And what you've got with the Drak is you've got a group that has a beef with just about everybody, but primarily the and us, the humans, the Earth Alliance or the Interstellar Alliance. And you just have to say it. The Drak, I think, are almost as bad, if not worse, than the Shadows. Because while the Shadows had a goal, all the Drak have is a vendetta. And a group with a vendetta and a lot of shadow tech is not a good combination.
Well said. I agree.
And, like Sheridan said several episodes previously, we're going to be dealing with the legacy of the Shadows for a long time to come. And he was right. And it's going to cost a lot of lives and a lot of heartache and a lot of grief. But as I understand it, in the end, the Drak get destroyed. They get wiped out. And that's the end of them. So, as the old saying goes, and I think it's apropos here, anyone who seeks revenge digs two graves. Potentially. For the target and for themselves. The Drak will not learn from their former masters anything of value. All they want to do is, well, as a wise man once said, they just want to watch the world burn. And they don't care who gets hurt in the process. So, take that for what you will.
Yeah. But still, the unfortunate pre-op of Londo Mollari. Oh man. Because you see the part where they're all standing over him, like kind of like what happened with Sheridan at that one point, where it's like, oh god, the creepy people are standing over me. Oh no. His last few days of freedom, in a way.
Yeah. It also shows how I guess like what Ambassador was saying, we're dealing with like there's always two dualities going on in Babylon 5 episode. We got the Drakh, which are as evil because they have vendetta and they're kind of wild, like you were saying, Ambassador, with all this technology. And then we have the Keepers that are more calculative in their chaos and destructive nature, where they're like really taking time to analyze who they're going to put a keeper on. It doesn't look like they just slap it on anybody. And so you get this slow, patient, calculative evil, and then you get the Drazi on their side being kind of reckless, impatient, kind of evil action going on here. It's like two extremes of different forms of, like, a hateful group of society or something at this time.
But me personally, I was looking at the chat. It's like I don't feel much sympathy for villains at all.
No, I don't. Well, our poor heroes have to deal with them. And then what's another thing? Well, cool. No, we see Natak again. That means he made it out of that, because in the end of season 2, he was the general who was with that Narn ship that needed supplies and repairs, and they docked at B5 and they made it to the jump point. I always wondered, before seeing this episode, if the Centauri got them or if they fell. But I forget if we see him again, but we see him again here, so we know that he made it.
He appears in season 4, where I think where Shakar asks him to go to join a fight to destroy the first shadow vessel.
Oh, that's right. Probably mentioned that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we rarely see him, so it's cool seeing recurring characters again. Because that actor also plays he plays Minbari too, who is
Robin Sachs, if I remember. He was actually an actor. He had a recurring role. He had like 3 or 4 appearances on a favorite show of mine, also from the 90s, both the Vampires there, where he played Ethan Rain. Great character. You never really learn what happens to him, but yeah, Robin Sachs.
Even by the end of this episode, it mirrors when the Centauri were bombarding Narn too. Like, woo, no, poor Londo.
Oh yeah, that scene. Oh, that's karma right there, in a weird way.
Yep.
And the
Londo
is just
knows
like,
exactly what's going to happen because he got to see it from orbit to the Narn. And even though the Drazi were kind of like the head catch on this, the Narn gladly joined in on some retaliation.
Mm-hmm. They're like, well, since legally they're the enemies, might as well.
Well, I want to make this comment, then I think you want to say something. The Drazi and the Narn, a lot of ways, are sides of the same point. We see the similar point in Star Trek, and that's, of course, the Klingon.
Ooh, there's a bit of roboting.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, hang on.
Actually, just as Ambassador's fixing up there, there's a great track on the DVD where it's a Bruce Boxleitner, Peter Jurassic, Tracy Saggins are doing a commentary on it, and Patricia Talman, and they mention that that scene where Shakar and Londo were Londo's kidnapped out of the cell, and they're joking that that's like how any night out on the town, like Tracy Saggins said, that's how any night out with Peter Jurassic ends. And it was basically, they meant that it was that Peter was so drunk, or they're all so drunk they're carried home. However, the first time I heard it, Jesus, his nights end with a SWAT team throwing a flashbang grenade into them. Their nights, they must be legendary.
Okay, am I coming through clear now, guys?
Ooh,
Much clearer, yes.
There you go.
Okay, sorry. The mic was a little bit away from me, so sorry about that. No, what I was saying, the Drazi and the Narn are two sides of the same coin, but we see a similar coin in Star Trek, and that, of course, is the Klingons. The Klingons have a very strict code of honor, but at times they will fight dirty if they see the opportunity to do so, and they will behoove them, so long as it doesn't cost them any honor. But at times, the win is more important than the honor. But I will say this: I think the Klingons are a much more honorable race than the Drazi. Not so much the Narn. The Narn will eventually get better. And I will say this about the Narn also. They had every justification for doing what they did to the Centauri, because the Centauri did occupy them, did enslave them, and did do them a lot of wrong. So I can't say that the Narn's retaliation in this episode and the episode after is not necessarily unjustified. But at the same time, they should have not targeted civilians. But you have to ask the question, were the Narn completely in the wrong for doing what they did, considering that the Centauri, during their war of occupation, at least from what we understand, they themselves targeted civilians in their war of occupation with the Narn?
I know it's been my argument that you have to get off the wheel of violence at some stage, otherwise it'll come back around on you. And I think, yes, the Narn were totally justified in what they did. However, if it was wrong to do it to them, it was wrong to do it to the Centauri. So wrong on every level. Though with the kind of asterisks, they had justification, but that's no excuse.
I agree. I mean, it could be justified to do something, but the act of war is a crime in itself altogether, in my opinion. I mean, civilians are not really the ones that kill other civilians. It's just all around bad. Like, it's like no reason to do. It's like reason to sin. It doesn't erase the sin itself being carried out. So I'm like, by just killing innocent people just to do to them as they did to you, it's like taking part in this, this violent nature of destruction, and that's not a solution. That's just joining in on the problem and changing targets. And as justified as they may be, it's still wrong, and they're going to have to live with that too.
Well,
And that's just the way it is. I mean, the way I see it, no amount of wrongs make a right. Only 3 lefts will make a right when you're driving. But other than that, no amount of wrong will ever turn into a right. That just makes more wrong. That's how I see it, though.
To be honest, the Centauri did sign up early via Londo to the Shadow's point of view. The whole might makes right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Londo should have listened to the more of those warnings, but he walked full on into that one.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And of course, the Drock being the Drock, they want to listen to Big Bad Daddy Shadows and be like, we want to inherit their mantle. Yay. Of course, again, like this whole episode though was set up very nice for the next episode, because you get like 2 different cliffhangers, because Lanier and Delen's White Star gets KO'd.
That's gonna be exciting.
And then, of course, because you'll have that ticking time bomb tied into the next episode, where will Londo help, rescue certain types of people? Because he's ultimately, like, he has to balance protecting the Centauri Republic against his own mistakes and, the influence of the Drock, versus he doesn't want his friends to die either. It's like, oh boy. All these bad decisions are just
Uh,
piling up.
but these decisions, and I think this is a key. This is like one of those key elements, like in season 1 when we had the shadows first appear. That was like the key episode to set up what was going to happen in the next seasons to come. I feel this episode right here is that for the books to come, the expansion of the years to come after Babylon, after season 5, year 5. So this episode and the next one are really key elements. I feel that when you read the Centauri Wheel of Fire, Book of Fire trilogy, I mean, this is like the seeds of all that, and it's really cool that we're getting it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I wish. I know it'll probably never happen, but I wish someone would take those books and adapt them into screenplays or scripts and do some sort of radio drama or maybe a mini series or something set in the B5 universe. I would even be all for. I mean, I know WB, Warner Brothers Discovery is going through a lot of restructuring right now. They're trying to get their legs underneath them and so on, and they just said they're up front. But I mean, considering that they're putting money into a reboot of B5, if this plays out right, I would hope that maybe we might get those stories, those books adapted for television at the very least. So, I mean, I don't know how you all feel about that idea, but personally, more B5 is never a bad thing, personally. As long as it's
I
done
agree.
right. It's given. Excuse me. Sorry.
No.
Lucas.
Hi.
Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I was just thinking that it would be like they've done animated series. It would be nice to see hand those books over and leave that animated series in many ways stand on its own, but still show the showcase what was in those books. I think it would be well worth it, and it would set people up nicely for I'm going to call it reimagining or reboot.
I would say reimagining, because you're not changing the story or retelling it. You're just telling it as is in a new vision. And I was thinking, it'd be cool to do like a radio podcast of those books or chapters, or like you're saying, animated. I was totally thinking that too. I mean, cool.
Yeah.
Or even like an anime.
I do want to address MB's comment here.
Yes.
MB, as far as I have heard, the B5 reboot has not been canceled, but here's the thing. It might be moved over to HBO Max. Now, if they do that, that's going to give them a much bigger budget to do that series, and that I'm all for. I did hear bits and pieces of the upfront, what Zaslav has in mind for that. I know I'm getting off a little bit of a tangent here, but it does pertain to B5, and hey, we talk about Babylon 5 here, both past and current. If Zaslav greenlights or doesn't cancel the reboot, he might say, okay, this is a franchise a lot of people have investment in. This is a franchise people care about. This is a franchise people still talk about online, even so many decades after its last episode. I mean, the last episode, I think, of Crusade aired in 98, 99, somewhere along in there. And people, we're still talking about it now in 2022, for Pete's sake. I've spent almost 3 years talking about this series from start to finish, and we still got a little ways to go here. But Vienna, I know how you feel, and I respect it. Don't get me wrong, but I say this with all sincerity. If Zaslav is smart, he will talk to Straczynski and say, we're going to give you your series, but we're going to, instead of it being on network television where you're not going to have much of a budget, we are going to put it on HBO Max where we can give you a bigger budget. Now, I know that may not necessarily be what Straczynski wants, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for him to continue the show, to pick back up kind of where he left off, and to maybe do the show the way he wanted it done in the first darn place. And I think for everybody here, Vienna, you can take this or leave it. Anything, no offense will be taken. I think I speak not just for myself, but at least for the other two panelists here and for all of you that are watching. We want more B5, but we want it to be good, and we want the guy who created this universe to be in charge of it. And if that includes not only a continuation of the series, how it was originally envisioned, but also the addition of these other stories of the Centauri Prime trilogy of books, the Psychor trilogy of books, or at least the Telepath War, and maybe a broadening of the Jock War, where we see the full conflict and we see how that affects these characters that we care about. I'm all for that. But again, that's me.
No, I'm with that too. I like more, but honest, my perfect world would be that, he just continues the story 10 years after year 5 and bring Tracy back and then just tell the story after that. That would be my perfect universe. But whenever there's any expansion or telling, I would like the creators in full control, because that's the only way, because this came from his heart, his imagination. Any more of it would definitely have to come from him. I could do a fan fiction. A lot of us could do a fan fictions, and that would come from love too. But the true source of the one who made it and all that, I think, is if anyone's going to expand, it should always be that way, if possible. I'm just glad JMS is part of it. I'm not hot about it being a reboot though, or starting all over again.
Yeah.
I just don't I just feel that could be achieved through making a series of these movies, or like they tried with Lost Tales. That was going to be like every now and then we'd get like these little short film specials of Babylon 5 universe in Lost Tales, but wish that continued, because that was clean and that could have been great.
What ultimately gets me is the fact that most of these settings are big enough to where you don't have to follow the same characters. You could make a completely different storyline. And what does the modern day entertainment industry do? Oh, let's just reboot it.
It's the most. I don't like reboot in that sense, because it's just kind of, unless there's been a real time capsule type of feeling to the work, which Babylon 5, I would say, sure, the special effects are a bit time out of date, but the content, the story, the messages, the adventure, even how the actors perform, very natural, and it still holds to today. So I feel that it's not worthy, or it's not need of a reboot, just expansion. But hey, again,
even books have this problem. Like, people will create a big setting, but they sometimes will stay around the same principal character that made the setting a thing. Where it's if you have a big enough setting, you can move on to different characters and do a different thing. Like, not all books have suffered from this, but plenty of them I've seen where it's just like you have to eventually retire a certain set of characters and move on with a different set of characters.
I think, though, JMS did consider carrying on in the same universe, but just so many of the cast have died that he said it was actually painful for him to think about setting it within the same continuation. And there was aspects he wanted to tell the first time around that he wasn't allowed. That he wanted to tell a story similar along, but I suppose in a different way. And I have mentioned that I have a video on my channel that it can still be in the same setting, that it's a retelling, that years like the deconstruction of falling stars.
mean,
And
people are
within-
free to do what they want to do with this, but yeah, I'm going to still be like, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to even engage with it because that will just lead down to a path of me being pissed off. So,
Understandable.
Okay, and that's fair. I get that, Fiona. Believe me.
And I understand the GMS not feeling comfortable about doing stories with these characters with the actors lost, because what JMS does, and he himself has mentioned, is that he gets to know the actors and he finds, because when you get to know someone, you get to understand, traits and
Yes.
personalities, and
Yeah.
he integrates that of the actor into the characters. And then when the actor reads it and they're like, hey, this is totally me, it's like this, he does this. And I think it's great a lot. I mean, that's what we do in art. We take pieces of our life and put it in our stories. But he also, as a writer and getting to know and work with these people on set during this story, he's able to combine the characters with the actors who are getting to know the characters. This is a very wholesome thing. So I can understand he could see no one else playing Chikara other than Andreas Katsulas, and I totally get that. So there's some wisdom in that too. I just think it's sorry, my dog is eating something he shouldn't have. Why are you doing that, dude? I totally lost my train of thought, but I understand where he's come from. But still, I feel that there's a way to do that without having to sacrifice what you feel, without having a reboot. But again, that's me. I still feel there's no need.
Well, and, here's the thing, and then just let me get this point out. At least, you can have your turn. To kind of bring this back to the episode we were discussing. This episode and the next episode is a culmination of 5 or 6 years of character development and growth and a journey, particularly Londo's journey. And we can look back over his entire arc as a character. And from the moment, and I've said this before, but I will reiterate it here. From the moment he gave Morden his answer, and from those moments that the seer, the late Emperor Turen's third wife, told him, you can avoid your fate if you do this, this, and this. His fate, unbeknownst to him, was sealed. Now, let's put this in the context of JMS working with Peter Jurassic on this character arc. It would be almost like Lucas working with both David Prowse, James Earl Jones, and Sebastian Shaw. And not only that, but also with Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen. All these actors gave their part or played their part in the telling of one man's journey. Quite honestly, one of the most iconic figures in pop culture, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. Think about the time and investment that it took, not just for Lucas, but for all those actors, both voice and live, to bring that journey to life. Now, put that in the same context of JMS working with Peter Jurassic. He's sitting with Peter and he's pitching this idea. And Archer Cullen, yes, Lady Roddenberry, the late Gene Roddenberry's wife, Major Barrett Roddenberry. Peter, I got this idea for this character for you. Name's Londo Mollari. Big as life, bombastic, sometimes a bit pig-headed, but with a good heart. But his journey is going to take on a direction that is going to be very hard. But I want you to go with me on this journey, Peter. Are you willing? Obviously, Peter Jurassic said yes. You get that type of investment, and you give that type of investment and time to a character, to a performance. That character becomes almost a part of you. Maybe unintentionally. Yeah, I'm going with somewhere with this, so just bear with me for a few more seconds, for a few more minutes. for JMS to go back into this universe and for him to reboot it, write the first pilot, write the story pretty much all the way through, and potentially opening himself up to new people, maybe some returners, we don't know yet. That is an incredible investment for a creative. It's easy, but it's rewarding. So yeah, there is a lot of trauma there for JMS because of all the people that have gone beyond the rim for those of us that are part of the B5 community. From Michael O'Hare to Jeffrey Doyle to Mare Farlon to Stephen Furst to Richard Biggs to the actor to Andreas Katsoulis. So many have gone beyond the rim. We've taken time here to recognize these actors and actresses and their amazing talent and their ability to entertain us. So while I understand some people's trepidation, even reservation, for JMS returning to this universe, as someone who has created his own story and is working to bring it to life, I say at least give JMS the benefit of the doubt and give those that will go with him on this journey a chance to tell the story that he has created. Might surprise you. I know for me, I say this, and I say it with all sincerity. We live for the one, we die for the one. JMS is my one. I trust him. He made this universe. He created it. He brought it to life. And I believe he can do it again. So as Archer Collins said right here, I'll bring up your comment, Archer. For some reason, I hear it come with me in the voice of the late, great Carl Sagan. Yeah, Colin, I wholeheartedly agree. So with that, I yield the floor. Elysium, it is yours, my friend.
No, I was about to mention that like the main characters, Sinclair, Franklin, Jakar, Garibaldi, Fear, Delenn, Zack, all those characters have passed beyond the rim. And even some of the actors who we'd love to see back. I mean, I'd love to see Bester back, but I don't think Walter Koenig would be up to the task. Now, much now as we'd love to see Bester, I'd like to see maybe some other character take on that role. Because for me, I look back on reboots. Now many people didn't like it, but I really, really loved the Battlestar Galactica reimagined. The first season.
Christoph Waltz for Bester.
I don't know the actor,
From,
but
the actor who was in what's that Jamie Foxx Quentin Tarantino movie Django
Unchained.
The one who played the Nazi leader.
Yeah, in Inglourious Bastards. And never call him late for dinner, but
yes.
Always welcome just the same. Zod Rider, my friend, good to see you, buddy. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
sorry I'm late. I didn't even know we were doing it today. I just saw the messages that we.
No, it's okay. Zod, it's okay, buddy. A lot of things went on this week. I'm sorry if so. I was just sharing my thoughts on the idea of the B5 reboot that JMS is heading up. So if you want to make a comment on that, or if you want to make a comment on the episode, Elysium, if you were done, Zod, you can have the floor for a few minutes. If not,
no, guys, keep going. It's good. I'm coming in late, so I didn't know where you guys were anyway. So
I think I was just about to finish up and say the Battlestar Galactica reboot, when they tried to be in some ways the old it failed. Like the character of Cara Trace was trying to be Starbuck, but when she became her own character, it became a much, much better show. And that's what I'd like to see with the reboot. That characters who may have the same name or similar become
That's
their own
the reason why I
things.
don't. That's why I don't think reboots are needed. If you have a rich enough setting, set it somewhere else, but have different characters.
I vote for that with her.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
It
And
is,
so
but
many things in Hollywood try to recapture whatever made something work in the first place. It's like, no, you don't have to do that. Have a separate story within whatever setting's already set up and make new character arcs with some other said people.
Mm.
It's like, ugh.
I see where Mountains is coming from, because
That's
just
what I
like me
thought.
as a Superman fan, I love the 77 Superman movie, and I love the 2013 Superman movie for different reasons, but they both shine on their own way. And but each Superman is a different iteration of Superman. I would actually say that Christopher Reeves does a great personification of the second version of Superman after he was less of a social justice warrior, and he was more like, being more commercial and goofy, whereas before he was a little bit more rugged, and just facing enemies and problems head on. Like the recent one, the Henry Cavill Superman, was more like the original. They're different iterations. So for what Mountains is explaining, I feel what would work for a reboot is to treat it as its own and not try to recapture lightning in a bottle from the first one, and be its own thing, a new star. Like, we'll get a John Sheridan, but it'll be tied to that actor and the John Sheridan that we knew or think we knew. It's going to be totally new, and I think that's way what Mountains believes in. You're saying, bro, is that if they become their own characters in this universe, then it'll be great. But if they do try to copy and recapture lightning in a bottle, I think it will fail. Kind of like what my criticism, one of many criticisms with Superman Returns, is I felt they were trying to copy too much of the past, that they lost the present where it needs to be. I think that's a reboot that will fail. That's a good example of what not to do, in my opinion. So
I agree.
They should have
it
made
could go
Superman
either
an
way.
absentee dad.
hmm So I totally feel you,
Ugh.
Mountains Elysium, and I also feel you, Fiona. I'm like both.
And honestly, guys, the initial Superman, the 40s and 50s run, go read Doc Savage. They lifted so much stuff wholesale from Doc Savage for the initial setup of Superman.
Yep.
It's like I get copying ideas, but man, like guys, because he basically did the strongman with Doc Savage for initial Superman, and then he didn't start flying until the Fleischer cartoons, and then the flying came into the comics because of that.
Yeah, that's why he leaped tall buildings with a single.
Yep.
Essentially. So, Zod, your thoughts on this episode? Movements of Fire and Shadow. What's your take on it?
I just felt like it was
It was setting up boot drops. That's what it was doing.
Yeah, like setting up so much, and I'm just we're getting to that point in the series now where we're pretty much entering finale territory. So I kind of see all these like these final episodes as all being one big movie. So it's hard for me to to really pinpoint specifically what it was about this episode that stood out so much so from everything that's been going on and everything that's being led up to.
Kind of like with season 4.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I get that. Really, I watched. The funny thing was, this was a couple weeks ago, and I did try to rewatch this episode last night, but I was exhausted from work. But I remembered it well enough from watching it about a week or so ago. I watched this episode, the episode before, then the episode after, and then I watched Wheel of Fire, and honestly, these for these 4 episodes go at such almost like a breakneck pace, giving us so much in terms of story and character development and character arc conclusion, particularly with Londo. I mean, you could almost say that this season, in a lot of ways, was Londo's season. Even though there were episodes that were focused on other characters, especially during the whole issue with Byron and the telepath colony there on B5. But season 5 was Londo's in a lot of ways. And, you know,
Well, it was Londo. It was I like to look at season 5 essentially as Londo's revelations.
Pretty much. Yeah. I would agree. Very much so.
Because he gets so much so much truth barreled at him in such in like a succession kind of a way. Like it's just constant from the start of season 5 all the way to the end, and you get the whole. I mean, you get to see. It's almost like Londo is coming. You get these revelations, and he's grown as a character, and by and large, he ultimately is the fully flawed but wise character he was always destined to become.
Yes.
So it's like those mistakes are all finally coming home to roost, but essentially he's I wouldn't say that he's necessarily better for it, but he's more aware now, at least.
Yeah, like it was. I think the second last episode of season 4, where Londo hears he's going to be the new emperor, he kind of takes a sigh or a step back, and it's like almost like he got what he wanted as far as power, but at the same time, he feels like it's not
a cage.
Yeah, he knows what's coming, and I feel like all season 5 we see that cage close in around him slowly, one bar at a time, and yeah, this whole part is like the most beautiful epilogue of a saga, which is the 5th part of a 5-part story arc, anyways. So it's that's perfectly well put. The revelations.
Yeah, and it's I think so sad. Like I think Ian has been mentioning Verini, and how Verini turns to enjoy your last moments of freedom, and I think Verini's an underappreciated character.
Yes,
that in Summit, it was just so a beauty in the way he portrayed a character he's completely under control of the keepers, but he's still, I think Fiona mentions it in the chat, that he still has his dignity. I'm still Centauri.
He says that big line in the next episode.
Yeah, and like you said, it's mentioned he starts with pastels. He was joyful. He was brave enough, I think, during Carthagia's time, to say to Londo, yeah, this is all wrong. Carthagia is insane. He was the only member of the court to speak out against him, even though it was quietly, Londo, quietly. He was still brave enough to do
about
it.
That headless court that he kept in the basement.
Yep. His shadow cabinet.
Oh, gross.
Anyway, and Archer, Colin's comment here is perfect. Londo's story is a perfect example of be careful what you wish for. You might just get it.
Yes.
But like we were saying with the revelations, he found his heart before he would be captured in that cage, Like his heart is what will save Delenn and Sheridan and other people later on in stickier situations. So as his fate was sealed, but the journey to get there, he found a brother in Jakar who he at first saw as an enemy in a dream. He's gotten a family amongst like other aliens, humans, Minbari, with the council. He has a lot of hope that he found that he wasn't looking for or trying, but it did come his way, even though he kind of forced himself in a self-fulfilling prophecy. by following his bullshit in the beginning.
In a way, he has the
layered.
he has the biggest religious arc of all the characters, essentially, when you put it that way, Koj, because he's like, because you mentioned it specifically where he wasn't, this was nothing he was looking for. Essentially, all he ever really wanted was power. He was striving to be emperor one day, and he wanted respect for his name. He wanted respect for himself individually. So he was on a very, very different trajectory altogether. And it was one of those things where it's just kind of like this was his, he has a lot of quote unquote come to Jesus moments here throughout this season. It's essentially his heart, like you said, and very well put, man.
Thank you, brother. You inspired it from what you said.
Even though this happens in the future, I did find it heartwarming that Zach Allen becomes one of Veer's security personnel when he's.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
Because nobody wants to leave, because Zach stayed on the station until it was decommissioned. But he did say he wouldn't leave the station until it went bye-bye.
Zach's are loyal.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very true.
Sorry,
had to pull Veer away from his 3 or 4 wives that he ends up having. Jeez.
Even I like the garb that he's wearing too at that point. It's very nice.
Yeah.
But in order for all that to come about, they have to get rid of the Drock. And so Londo will bear the brunt of getting rid of the Drock. And you'll see that more in the trilogy too. Him trying to keep Veer out of underfoot of getting into the direct line of fire. But even Galen and his band get involved in that. It's like, using shadow tech to defeat shadow creatures.
Just as a quick mention, Colin mentions that Verini cannot pronounce the word Centauri. I always took that and it was something I thought was excellent for JMS. He mentioned that when characters are speaking with other races, they're speaking in English because they're speaking interlac, so everyone can understand each other. But when they're on their own, they're speaking their own languages.
Well, that and the actor.
Centauri.
Just to say that the actor had to wear the fake teeth. Apparently, Stephen first got rid of the fake teeth, the fake canines, because it would make him lisp too much.
Yeah,
so that could also be a thing.
I think I actually kind of noticed that and everything in the earlier seasons. So, but well, even they. Go ahead, Elysium.
So it was just that I imagined that, like on Earth, like I have an Irish accent, you guys would have American accents. That in the Centauri Prime, you hear different accents. Like Stephen First has an American accent. Londo puts on an Eastern European, and there's many Irish actors in the in Centauri Prime. The creepy weasel that's been the antagonist lately, the Minister Collini, was Irish. Some of the other actors have been Irish. Oh, he's a scumbag. But you hear
that character. There's another head to shove on Pike right next to the rotting mass as Morden's skull.
If he's still acting, I'd like to see him as Clark in the reboot, because I think he just portrays a creep so good.
There is some kind of funny thing. Like, I just recently did finish watching that one episode where Crichton thinks he's gone back to Earth, and then they have everybody in the containment thing, and how that weird bug thing translate everything for Crichton, but then all the humans hear all the weird alien languages instead. So all sorts of sci-fi shows have played off of that whole interlac, like translating for everybody. But anybody who doesn't have the translation capability, it's like all they hear is gibberish. And that Claudia Black lady actually said those lines of her own volition. She was able to speak backwards. It's like, what? So I imagine most of the Babylon 5 aliens, if you could hear them without any kind of translation, it'd probably sound just as strange.
But I like that they do. I think Delenn mentions it in the next episodes to come, that they focus on English, the language of commerce. It's kind of cool because in Asian countries, for their business classes or business trade, everyone learns English. So you'll have like someone from Thailand and Japan speak English to each other, and then a lot of their movies are like English spoken. Sometimes they'll have English subtitles because the accents are harder to understand, and it's easier to read English than to hear it from so many different English speakers. Which is cool that Centauri, they have so many different kinds of accents that they blend in, because it kind of tells me, okay, Veer is probably from a different region that Londo didn't grow up in, hence why his accent's a little different. I think that's kind of cool because that's a little reflective of life here.
And Archer Colin, I get that reference to one of my all-time favorite books and also one of my all-time favorite movies and BBC miniseries. Can we just say 42? As of course, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Love that movie.
Yes.
Both the one with Martin
Colin.
Freeman and the original with the babies from the BBC.
And Colin's also mentioning a really fun was it a sitcom that used to be on the BBC, was it Hello Hello? Where kind of you had it was set in wartime World War II in the French Resistance, but the main characters were all speaking English, but supposedly those English agents dropped into France, and they had really exaggerated French accents which they couldn't pronounce, and the characters saying, "What's this guy trying to do? He can't even speak French." It was just a really, really funny thing. Like all the English actors were completely over the top, accents were terrible, and it was just fun.
Imagine. I can imagine. So, yeah, I did a review of Hitchhiker's Guide back when I first started the channel a couple of years ago, and I think someday I'm going to do a watch along for the movie, the one with Martin Freeman, because the movie is an absolute delight. It has a great cast. It's a great adaptation of the book. I mean, granted, the BBC miniseries is more faithful in a lot of ways, but at the same time, there's just something about seeing Martin Freeman and Zooey Deschanel and Sam Rockwell and Mos Def, and of course, the voice talent of the late great Alan Rickman, and of course, a cameo appearance by John Malkovich. That's always a win.
If I must say, actually, on that note, before I forget it, Alan Rickman was the one I fantasy dreamcasted to play Jakar if there was going to be a movie version and just have
or a reboot. Yeah.
Like Alan Rickman could have done a really. He's got the nose for it too, and the style and the pacing, the speech pattern. Well, that was just one of my fantasy castings.
Actually, like if you think about Galaxy Quest, wasn't the character that Alan Rickman played like a cross between
Dr. Lazarus, Alexander Dane,
and Spock and Jakar.
Yeah, you always get the best lines.
Well, if I ever get to 500 subscribers, we're gonna do a watch along for Galaxy Quest. But I've got to get to 500
everyone
first.
Subscribe now. Let's do it.
Let's do it now.
Well, everybody that's here is already subscribed.
Tell your friends. Tell your loved ones. Everyone.
We ever hit 500, I'm going to be doing my first giveaway for a copy of The Fifth Element in 4K. We're going to do a watch along, and I'm going to for Galaxy Quest, and I'm going to do a name reveal, my first name. You'll finally, for those who don't know anyway, because the council, I think, by and large, knows my first name, but I've sworn them to secrecy until I reveal it whenever we hit 500. So.
Secrecy so much, I even forgot.
It's okay, Coach J.
Ambassador for life. Until you say so.
DJ, nope. Not even close. Nope. Not even remotely close. But I do want to bring up this
the different inheritance of naming.
So there was one other thing I was
Withereth.
What?
That's definitely not your name. I was just taking a stab in the dark.
Jakar the second. Oh, look, Jakar the third. Jakar became a very popular name after the Book of Jakar.
I wish I
Nope, Ronnie, you are so far off. there was something else I was going to bring up. Damn it.
Horatio.
Oh yeah.
I just saw that.
Winthorpe.
Man,
Horatio.
No.
Horatio
Even with
Winthorpe. There you go. We figured it out. Horatio
Nope.
Winthorpe.
Not even. Y'all. I know
Well,
y'all.
what's
are
funny is
joking
that one book that from Baen Books that Peter Jerzak co-wrote with the one other guy.
Jurassic, you uncultured swine.
But still, no.
Okay, it's Horatio Jurassic. That's your name.
The third.
The third.
Where the heck did I put it? I know I have it here somewhere, but it basically reminded me of Galaxy Quest in the fact that the one character he wrote in the book was kind of like a mixture of Kirk and Sheridan. Like, he always gets the girl.
Well, speaking of castings, there was some news. I think it was last week, maybe. Denis Villeneuve has cast the Emperor for Dune Part 2. Have you all heard about this?
No, I have not.
I vaguely remember seeing an
yes.
article, but I didn't read it, so I don't know.
Elysium, do you know who he cast as the Emperor? Shaddam IV?
Shall I reveal, or I think, or do you want to do the one? Because I think I haven't read Dune in a while, but that actor who you're maybe about to mention is good in so many things.
Yes.
And
yes, he is. Denis Villeneuve, in his great wisdom, has cast as Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV. The one and the only. We know him, we love him. He is one of the most iconic voices in the history of cinema. Christopher Walken.
Oh yeah,
Christopher.
I did
yep,
see that.
Christopher
Yes.
Walken. And I could not be more pleased. Yep.
Max Shrek himself. Yes.
Yes. And as I said, I cannot be more pleased because let's say so. Okay, you're going to have Timothy Chalamet. You're going to have Rebecca Ferguson, I think is her name, as Jessica back. You're going to have Stellan Skarsgård back as Harkonnen. You're going to have Dave Bautista back as Raban. You're going to have Javier Bardem as Stilgar. He's going to be back. We don't know who's going to play Alia, but I'm sure that Villeneuve will cast somebody good.
I have to say that Villeneuve has been so good. Sorry.
No, Elysium, you're fine. I'm so geeking out. I know we have to wait a year or so for Dune Part 2, but you know what? All good things come to those who wait, and I can wait for Dune Part 2 because Dune Part 1 was so freaking good. Not to mention Blade Runner 2049 was so freaking good.
Oh,
it's
it's fantastic.
Well, here's, I'll say this and then we're probably going to wrap up. I'll let y'all have some final comments and then we'll wrap up. I did a review of Blade Runner 2049 a few weeks ago, but there was one thing in that movie I didn't really get a chance to talk with my co-host with. And I was like, I need to revisit this or it's going to drive me nuts. The relationship between Kay and Joy, Ryan Gosling and Ana de Armas' characters. I love I love that dynamic. I absolutely do. And I've got the video recorded. I've just got to edit it together the way I want it and everything and then upload it. But I love the dynamic and there's so much going on in that relationship. And yes, I do call it that. Because Ridley Scott plays with a similar idea in the original Blade Runner. Can a biological human being fall in love with a synthetic human being? And vice versa. And it's really a very thought-provoking topic. So I was like, I've got to revisit this. I cannot just let it lie. So, but that's kind of my little mini positive rant. So guys, I'm going to let you have your final thoughts on the episode or whatever you want to bring up. And then we will call it an afternoon or an evening. So the floor is yours, my friends.
Just say that none of us try and exit out like Chikara got Londo out of his situation. Just saying.
Oh, yeah, because Chikara had to throw up everywhere.
Well, I did eat something I didn't like, so I could focus on it a little bit.
I like the conversation. Car's like, "Shh, I have to concentrate.
He's like, "Wait, what are you doing?"
I forgot about that.
I'll tell you guys, you know, if you really wanna be able to get a friend out of a situation like that, just eat some Taco Bell. They don't bother to season the food anymore. It's absolutely horrible. So that
There
might
you go. Put some
possible.
sriracha on that, you know.
unedible like plastic. Yeah, I mean that's in good shape.
In fact,
That's why they give you. That's why they give you the sauce. That's why you've got so many different choices of sauce, Zod Rider.
That's right.
probably
You're
when you throw up
100%
Taco
right.
Bell, it is now edible. Than
Well,
before.
because your body has done the processing that they should have done when they were
Like bees and honey.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's the origin story, the Mexican dragon.
Dragon Lee. Sorry.
Oh gosh.
Y'all
are a mess, but you're my mess, and I love you. So.
But yeah, I did look up that Diplomatic Act book again. It's cheaper to buy the paperback, but if you can find it even like a hardback, it's worth owning in hardback. It's pretty funny.
I got lucky. I bought a missing book from the Psychor trilogy. Thank you, Council, for helping me remember the name of it and all that. I got it for like $11. So if you look around, you can find it. Like, it's not bad. You gotta just keep an eye out and keep shopping around.
I mean, again, I linked
they're still around.
I linked a database that can let you get it for the ebook version because they never really made ebook versions. But honestly, since they're not really reprinting these books, it's like, go for it. Download the Centauri Prime trilogy.
Well, there's something I want to do. Hopefully, I don't get in trouble. I don't think I will if I do it in parts, but I want to do like a kind of like a reading. You know how people do audiobooks? They have like.
Oh yeah, you could definitely do that.
I was thinking about just reading it on my channel.
You can do that, and it won't.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that reading on my channel because there's a Mortal Kombat novel that was fantastic. It was made before the movie. It was around the time to promote the first video game.
I know which novel you're talking about.
I have it.
And the writing is awesome. I've got the book. Yes, I've got the book. I've actually got the paperback next to me.
Oh shoot, me too. It's on my dude. I have that book with all my Babylon 5 stuff. It's like right there with it.
Nice.
Because especially Babylon 5 and Mortal Kombat 95 at the time, that was my biggest high. Not only that, but I ended up working for the casting director of both. That's why you see the crossover. And I mentioned that before, but having that book with the Babylon 5 books just kind of makes sense to me. And it's so well written. Yeah. So after I do that one, I want to read the Babylon 5 books in chronological order. Chronological order.
Nice.
That would be great. That would be great. That would be great for your channel, Koj. I'm going to be honest. That'd be epic.
Hell yeah, because I'm focusing on geek content on my channel. That I like.
You are.
The Koj.
And I know.
Babylon 5 is number one.
Yes, it is. Well, I know Elysium was good enough as he always does. One of my best mods around. He put the link to everybody's channel in the chat. So if when you catch us on the replay, folks, if you're not subscribed, not to just myself, but the rest of the council, go hit those links, go subscribe, and tell them the council sent you. Of course, they are the council. But as I said, I think that's going to be it for this evening. I want to thank my fellow council members, Phantom Wolf, Mounts of Elysium, or Coach, and as I said, never calling late for dinner, Zod Rider, for all being here today. Great discussion, guys. A lot of good conversation, as I've come to expect from you all, and also to the chat. You all, though you may not be here with us live, you all are also part of this council. As Elysium says so eloquently, just about as well as I can say, you all are a part of this council just as much as we are. So thank you all for being here this week and every week before now and after this stream. I do want to let you all know I will be live tomorrow evening, 7:30 Central Time. I will be continuing my review series of the X-Men films. We will be discussing X-Men 2, X-Men United. So be sure to I've already set up the link for that and everything. So make sure you hit that reminder button so that when I go live, you'll be able to tune in and join all the fun. And as I mentioned, I'm working on a couple of videos to upload and everything. I'm going to try and get those out next week because I've been meaning to. It's just work has been an absolute slog. That's why we started late today. But I thank you all for your patience. I thank you all for your understanding and being here today, even though we did start late. We will, of course, be back next week with our thoughts on the episode, The Fall of Centauri Prime. Hopefully at our normal time of 3:30 Central Time, Lord willing, and the creek does not rise, and things don't get any crazier at work. But that being said, you all have a great afternoon, a great evening. Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you all next week. And until next week, this is the Council of One saying, and 3, 2, 1. Zooty.
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 Dude.
Shooting.